453 AD, Attila the Hun died suddenly. Within years, his empire crumbled. But what really happened to his people? The Huns, those nomadic horsemen who struck terror into the hearts of ancient Rome and beyond. One moment, they were the scourge of Europe, and the next, they vanished. But how could such a powerful group simply disappear? Today, we're taking a peek into one of history's greatest mysteries, the disappearance of the Huns. Let's start with who the Huns were. Emerging from the plains of Central Asia, the Huns were nomadic warriors known for their exceptional horsemanship and archery skills. They first appeared on the edges of Europe in the 4th century AD, quickly making a name for themselves as fierce fighters and ruthless conquerors. Under the leadership of Attila, often called the Scourge of God, the Huns reached the height of their power in the 5th century. They built a vast empire stretching from the Ural Mountains to the Rhine River, striking fear into the hearts of both the Eastern and Western Roman empires. But here's where things get interesting. After Attila's death in 453 AD, the Hun Empire began to crumble. His sons fought among themselves, weakening their hold on their vast territories. The subject peoples they had conquered saw an opportunity and began to rebel. In 454 AD, at the Battle of Nidau, a coalition of Germanic tribes defeated the Huns, dealing a devastating blow to their power. From this point on, the Huns seemed to fade from history. But what exactly happened to them? Did they simply vanish into thin air? Of course not, people don't just disappear. So, let's explore some theories about what might have happened to this once mighty people. One possibility is that the Huns were absorbed into other populations. After their defeat, many Huns likely integrated into the societies of their former subjects or enemies. They might have settled down, adopted new customs, and gradually lost their distinct identity. This process, known as assimilation, has happened to many groups throughout history. Another theory suggests that some Huns may have returned to their ancestral lands in Central Asia. Without the unity and leadership that had made them so formidable, they might have reverted to their nomadic lifestyle, blending in with other steppe peoples. So over time, their descendants might have become part of other nomadic groups, like the Avars or the Bulgars. Disease could have also played a role in the Huns' decline. The 6th century saw a devastating outbreak of plague in Europe and the Mediterranean. While this came after the Huns' political collapse, it's possible that earlier epidemics weakened their population. Nomadic peoples were particularly vulnerable to disease due to their constant movement and lack of immunity to settled populations' illnesses. Climate change is another factor to consider. Some researchers believe that the 5th and 6th centuries saw a period of cooling and increased rainfall in Europe. For a people adapted to the dry steppes, these changes could have made their traditional way of life unsustainable. They might have been forced to adapt or move, further contributing to the loss of their distinct culture. It's also worth noting that the Huns' disappearance might be partly a matter of perception. As they lost their political and military dominance, they may have simply stopped being noteworthy to the chroniclers of the time. The Huns were often depicted as almost mythical beings by Roman writers. Once they were no longer a threat, interest in recording their activities might have waned. Let's consider an interesting parallel from more recent history. The Mongol Empire, like the Hun Empire, was a vast realm built by nomadic warriors from the steppes. After its fall, the Mongols didn't disappear. They're still around today. But they did lose their empire and much of their military might. The Huns might have followed a similar path, continuing to exist, but in a much diminished state. Another factor to consider is the Huns' own social structure. They were a confederation of different tribes and peoples rather than a single homogeneous group. Once the unifying force of a strong leader and military success was gone, these various groups might have simply drifted apart. Each could have followed its own path, some assimilating, some returning to nomadism, others forming new alliances. Archaeology has provided some clues about the fate of the Huns. Hun-style artifacts have been found in Eastern Europe, dating from after their supposed disappearance. This suggests that some Huns, or at least their cultural influence, persisted in these areas for some time. However, these findings are relatively sparse, supporting the idea of a gradual decline rather than a sudden vanishing. The legacy of the Huns lived on long after they faded from the historical stage. Their invasion had accelerated the fall of the Western Roman Empire and set in motion the great migrations that shaped medieval Europe. The very name Hun became synonymous with barbarism and destruction in European culture. Ironically, this cultural impact might have outlasted the actual Hun people themselves. So, what can we conclude about the fate of the Huns? It seems likely that there was no single cause for their disappearance, but rather a combination of factors. Military defeat, loss of leadership, assimilation, climate change, and possibly disease all played a part. The fearsome warriors of Attila didn't vanish in an instant, but gradually faded away, their descendants merging into other populations or adapting to new ways of life. This gradual fading is a common pattern in history. Empires rise and fall, cultures evolve and change. The Huns' disappearance reminds us that even the mightiest civilizations are not eternal. It's a humbling thought, isn't it? As we wrap up our exploration of this historical mystery, I'd love to hear your thoughts. What do you think happened to the Huns? Do you know of any similar cases of vanishing peoples in history? Share your ideas in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this short journey into one of history's great mysteries, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. We've got plenty more historical enigmas to unravel in future episodes. Remember, history isn't just about memorizing dates and names. It's about understanding the complex tapestry of human experience. The story of the Huns and their disappearance is just one thread in that vast tapestry. By studying it, we gain insights not just into the past but into the nature of power, culture, and change that are still relevant today. Thanks for joining us on this historical journey. Please like and subscribe for more historical mysteries.